Hello and welcome to another episode of A Slice of Health, the Candid Health Chat podcast, where we slice away health truth from health fiction. Join me and my friends as we challenge common health myths via chit chat, powered by several cups of coffee. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media, and do visit us at asliceofhealth.club. Let's get to today's episode. On today's episode, I'm joined by Stephanie and Ebuni, who are both qualified trichologists and members of the International Association of Trichologists. Trichology is a science and study of hair. Clinical trichology is the diagnosis and treatment of diseases and disorders of the hair and scalp. Currently on the NHS, you cannot be referred directly to a trichologist. However, you can be referred to a dermatologist, which is a doctor that specialises in skincare conditions. This episode is slightly different from our usual medical and clinical guideline episodes. However, it does relate to health and well-being and was certainly challenging and enlightening for me, and definitely chit-chat at its best. Ebuni is a qualified trichologist and member of the International Association of Trichology. Her passion is in natural hair, and her aim is to help clients by providing a particular focus on promoting health and solving hair loss issues. She has also been a hairstylist from a young age and made a decision to pursue this role full-time. She has featured on the BBC. Ebuni has also worked with London Fashion Week, London Collection Men, and at events in both Dubai and Nigeria. She hosts the informative and straight-to-the-point hair health podcast, Snatched Edges. Stephanie is a consultant trichologist with first-hand experience of hair loss. And after suffering with hair and scalp issues for a few years, Stephanie then decided to undertake her training in order to find out more about the root cause of her issues and to help those who have also suffered from hair loss. She is a graduate and member of the Institutes of Trichology and undertook training in scalp micropigmentation with finishing touches. Stephanie has had several years of experience, including working as a dermatology assistant in a skin and hair clinic, and she sees patients of all ethnicities and hair types. However, she does have a special interest in Afro and mixed texture hair. She is also a brand spokesperson for Nizoral Medicated Shampoo. Together, Ebuni and Stephanie form the Kinky Collective, which creates a safe environment for Black women to talk about their hair and their hair concerns. Ebuni and Stephanie in today's episode challenge our habits in the Afro hair community, social media trends with evidence from their trichology experience and their studies so far. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Could both of you just tell me how you each got into trichology?
Stephanie, do you want to go first? I knew that would happen.
It's just really interesting, and it's not something we talk about quite often, so I thought it might be interesting to know how you got into it.
Yeah, sure. So I lost my hair first when I was about 14.
Okay.
And I had problems with my hair until quite into my 20s.
Okay.
And I was still struggling when I went to see a trichologist again to find out. I was a bit worried that my hair wasn't going to grow back. So I went to see him again. I'd seen the same trichologist when I was 18, I think. And he was talking me through what's going on with my hair. He was giving me a treatment. And then I started to tell him all the research I was doing around hair, because at that time, the natural hair movement had really picked up force and people were really sharing information on the internet. And he then pulled out the Institute of Trichologists materials. And he said, "Oh, have a look at these materials. Think about studying on the course. You seem really interested in this." And for a moment, I thought, I am really interested in this. I'm absolutely obsessed with hair, probably because I was lacking hair at some points in my life. And I think it would be really good to help others, because I know my mum certainly struggled to find help for me when I was 14. So it would be really nice to help others, particularly Black women, because I think sometimes we get a raw deal in terms of, the people understanding our hair. Mm-hmm. So I did the course, and the rest is history. That's how I got into it.
Wow, that's awesome. And in terms of being a trichologist now, how would you say sort of the landscape is? Do we have quite a few, people of colour being trichologists, or is it quite a Caucasian-dominated space?
Well, when I started, it was a Caucasian-dominated space. Very. I mean, I think there was like 3 black trichologists, including me. So at that time, when anybody did events or anything, it would only be Caucasians giving advice on black hair. And the person the person that taught me at the institute, he was a specialist in black hair because he'd seen a lot of black patients.
Okay.
His clinic had been located in Brixton and Clapham. The landscape is changing now. We've got more black trichologists coming onto the scene. I think once you start to see other people doing it, it sparks an interest in you. And since then, Ebony has come on the scene, so I guess she can explain how she came on the scene as well.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you get into trichology, Ebony?
So my background's a little bit of like a roundabout. So I first started off as a science teacher, but I actually had like a really big interest in hair, and it was like my first passion. So I gave up teaching several times to go back into doing hairdressing, and finally I was like, I've had enough of school. Let me kind of do what I really want. And working in different salons, I saw a lot of women of all races suffering with hair loss. And at the time, it would be like, oh, mix up this hot oil treatment or put this no shampoo on it. It didn't feel like I was doing anything at all. So I kind of was looking around for something that would really explain why these women were suffering in this way. And I can't exactly remember how I came across trichology, but when I did, I was like, this is what I'm going to do, because it's like science and hair, my 2 loves just put together. And I was reaching out to black trichologists and looking for them, and as Stephanie said, there was hardly any. And so I found her and definitely started stalking. I found her on Instagram. I saw she was doing the natural hair event. I was like, okay, I'm going to go meet her.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's really cool.
It was important to me to kind of find women who looked like me that were doing it, because I was like, obviously, from what I'd seen, I was like, but the information would be wash your hair every day or do this or do that. I'm like, it doesn't really merge well with Afro hair care practices.
Yes.
And so, I wanted to kind of make sure that whatever I learned, I could apply it to black hair as well.
Yeah, that's really important. And obviously, representation matters. And, if I'm doing something and I can see that people like me are doing it, it gives a kind of comfort, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's a lot of new black trichologists that are coming up. So I'm really excited for the next 2-3 years while everyone's doing their training. And, we kind of get to go to more events, do more research, really find out why some of the things that happen to black women are, and really be at the forefront of the scene.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the hair journey as well for a black woman and even black men is completely different from that of any other race, really, just because of the textures of our hair and the kind of manipulation that we engage in with our hair as well. And Ebony, you mentioned something that I'm just going to get into now. You said women doing a lot of hot oil treatments.
Yeah.
And mixing all sorts. And oh gosh, just before this, I think sometime during the week, I was going to send you guys a screenshot of something I saw on YouTube. This lady was mixing, the Virgil hair fertilizer. She mixed in sulfurate. She mixed in shea butter, mango butter, and some tea tree oil. So she mixed it all up, heated it in a microwave, and it was basically this YouTube tutorial on how this was an amazing hair growth and hair conditioning treatment. And I just want you guys to touch on...
I wish you could see my face right now.
You know what? Same here. I feel like I'm looking to the sky, wow.
Yeah, I'm confusion. You know what, the other day I was on YouTube and I saw some woman spraying aloe vera for a deep treatment. I was just like, why are you sauteing it? Why is it in your what? But I feel like before anyone comes to me, hot oil treatments can be great. It's just, I think, why and how people use them.
Yeah, I agree.
So when people say the internet's a mad place. And while I was training for trichology, I was doing a lot of like ghostwriting for companies about natural hair.
Yeah.
I was writing blogs for a lot of like big companies and stuff like that. And the request that I would get for people to write would be like, hey, can you say how like coconut oil can like reverse this, that, and the other? And I'm like, no, because it doesn't. But can you? And I'm like, no, because but this article says, I'm like, but that person just made it up. And when you start to research things, you realise that lots of things have been plagiarised. Like, I always say it's like Chinese whispers. One person will say something, another blog will reblog it, and then everybody's like, oh yeah, you know, if you want to grow your hair an inch in a month, stand upside down and do the inversion method. And I'm like, this doesn't make actual sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, what a lot of YouTubers have capitalised on is that people are really worried about their hair or feel like their hair isn't growing well, and are trying everything apart from applying sense to help it. So it's just like, what's the quick fix? What can I do really quickly now? Like, okay, I've got all these things, I want to buy this, I want to apply it, and it feels like you're doing something, like, oh, you know, the sulfate, it might burn, or it smells really medicinal, but it's like, you just warmed up petroleum and put it on your scalp and said, yeah, it's going to do something. So I feel like whenever you kind of go to these things, you just have to really like take a step back and think, what is it that I'm using and how does it work? If a person can't explain to you like the kind of science or like, you know, the understanding of the processes behind it, then just close the tab.
Yeah.
Yeah, you touched on something, Ebony, there, which I always say whenever I speak or I'm talking to people. There is a strong thing amongst, I can't even say just the Black women community, Black community, where there's a sense where the things that we use to treat ourselves for any kind of ailments must hurt in some way. So if I'm doing skincare, I must use something that abrades the skin. I must use beads or like granules, peach kernels to do a scrub. You know, if I put some cream or lotion in my hair, it must burn a bit because that means it's working. My toothpaste must be the extra, you know, pepperminty one. Everything must hurt. And I don't understand where we've come from a place where everything must hurt. Braids must be tight. Because it's neat, and you know, if I have to take paracetamol and sleep with my hair propped up, then that's fine. So I think there's definitely something in that, because that sulfurate mixture that you described, I mean, I screamed silently when you said sulfurate. So it's very heavy in petroleum. So yeah, I think there's definitely a thing there where people have this desire for things. If it hurts a little bit, then it's working.
And I'm just thinking, even with that mix, I'm like, you don't even know how those chemicals work together. You don't know if like something's counteracting the other properties of something else. And it's just like, you know, like how at home when it's like, when you have cleaning products, they're like, don't mix these two products together. Yeah. You don't know what you're doing when you're mixing. Not to say that they're the same level, but when you mix A and B, you don't know what reaction you're going to get. If it cancels out something, if it creates a new product that's going to actually irritate or burn or cause damage, it's like, please, just be careful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing that I suppose a lot of people don't really understand as well is that trichology is actually a science, and so it's not just hearsay or anything. It's evidence-based, and you know, you've studied for it, and you're showing you're giving advice based on actual evidence. And Ebony, I just want to ask you, in terms of, you know, doing the hairdressing and then going to study trichology formally, how would you say that has changed your practice? Because obviously we have quite a lot of hairdressers who have not trained in trichology. So how would you say that your practice is different, and what kind of different experience would someone visiting you as a hairdresser who's also a trichologist be compared to if they visited a hairdresser who only practiced that?
I think even when I was hairdressing, I was very cognizant of the fact that a lot of the things we do are nonsense.
Okay.
Like a lot of the things, it didn't sit well with me, and I think through studying trichology, it kind of brought to light that a lot of the things are excessive. Or like even before, like I didn't like doing relaxers, I didn't like doing braids very tight, and so now I'm just very like strong in my beliefs about why I do and don't do certain things. And so even like down to like the amount of products, like I remember Stephanie came to see me to get her hair done, and she's just like, that's how much cream you're putting in my hair, and I'm like, I don't need any more. So those things always kind of like shock people how I'm very like minimalist in my approach. Now in my services, I don't do like braids with extensions anymore. I don't do any color. I like my service menu is very, very slim, just because I'm like, I just want to help you with the health of your hair, and rather than just styling it for the sake of it looking nice.
Okay. And just to piggyback on that, you said you don't do braids with extensions anymore. Why is that?
Firstly, just because I'm lazy. It takes too much time.
Okay. And is there any other reason?
I think when people come to see me, there's also a need of them wanting to know how to look after their hair.
Okay.
And so if it's in extensions, they're not going to be, not to say everyone is, but you don't get to put in as much effort or really understand what your hair is doing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you can do extensions. I can recommend some great stylists for you, but I want to teach you how to look after your own hair first. And so once you've got that done, then I'm happy for you to go and get that done somewhere else.
Okay. And Stephanie, I'm just going to ask you a few questions about your opinions on certain things that we practice in terms of natural hair, and then we'll come to sort of dry scalp conditions and the oiling of it. Apple cider vinegar rinses.
So apple cider vinegar rinses, I'm not really too bothered about. The pH of apple cider vinegar is low, around 4.5, and as is the acid mantle on the scalp. Sometimes if you've got like quite an itchy scalp, it's quite soothing, but it's not, I don't believe in it so far as you're diluting it. And also I don't believe in using it to cleanse the hair. You know, like people are getting it on cotton bud and saying, I'm scrunching or whatever the term is to remove the sebum. I don't believe in that. But if someone tells me they do apple cider vinegar rinses in clinic, I'm like, yeah, cool, you can carry on. It's not harming you per se. So
Okay. And rice water for hair growth?
Oh my God, I can't. I've watched so many videos on it, and I've seen people doing it. People have mentioned it in clinic, and Ebony and I have discussed this at length, you know. Ebony even kindly pulled out the, original report and everything. And I just, for me, one thing I'll caveat in this is that there may be some remedies out there that we have not yet discovered. So the experimentation by people out there can be done, but the problem is that there's a real obsession, and then there's this kind of Chinese whispers, and it grows into this massive ball of this makes your hair grow. Putting rice in a cupboard to ferment and then putting it on your hair is not good for your scalp or your hair, because we don't know the level of fermentation we need to stop at. Fermenting a product is a very fine science. People drinking things like kombucha and all of those things have been finely fermented in controlled conditions.
Yeah.
You just stuck it anywhere and then you put it on your hair. You know, there's so many other products that have been tested. Why do we want to put this on our hair? And why are we wasting good rice? This is what Ebony said.
Can I just say, every time I cook rice, I'm actually traumatized. Like, I get to washing the rice and I'm like, I'm putting it down the sink. And so in my mind, I'm like, someone put this in their hair, someone put this in their hair, someone put this in their hair. And honestly, I can't look at rice the same. Like, it really stresses me out. Sorry, I just had to add that because, it's really ruined jollof rice for me. I'm like, someone's taken this dirty water and just put it in their cupboard. And it's applied to their scalp. And I'm like, also, rinse off products. I'm like, how much effect is a rinse off product going to have? Like, how do you leave it on? Like, there's so many other factors that go into hair growth, and you think that a solution that you leave on for like 15 minutes, even up to an hour if you want to, is going to have more effect than like your lifestyle, your diet, your health, any other products that you're using, your styling methods. It just
that one is definitely on my bin list. If you tell me that, I'm like, bin it. I'm not into that.
Okay. Deep conditioning overnight?
Another thing I don't really understand, I find that leaves the scalp soggy, but the jury's out. I mean, on this one, I'll defer to Ebony. What do you think? I mean, I tell people not to do it, follow the instructions, maybe an hour, maximum 2, but overnight, I'm not keen on.
Yeah, I don't, it's not per se that I feel like it's, I feel like it just leaves you open to more damage if your hair is wet for long extended periods of time. And if you're sleeping, you move around. I'm just like, you're making it more prone to wear and tear. If you happen to like be deep conditioning and you fall asleep, whatever, okay, when no one's gonna die, your hair's not gonna drop out. But if it's like your regular thing, also those products are formulated to be absorbed quickly. So after maybe 20 minutes, 45 minutes, even up to an hour, you're not getting any more absorbance. It's like pouring that sugar into hot water. After a while, the sugar's not going to dissolve anymore. So you can keep on adding, but nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
That is a science teacher explanation.
That is, it's a very good analogy of some saturation. That's fantastic.
I think my mind is like, I just try to think of things at like the most simple level. So I'm like, okay, if someone who deep conditions for 30 minutes versus someone who deep conditions for an hour with heat, yes, there may be like, some difference to their hair, but I'm like, at what point does it start to get ridiculous? So if you deep condition overnight, what about if I deep condition for 2 nights? And what if I deep condition for 3 nights? And what if I never stop deep conditioning? Like, where does it end?
I'm going to actually raise my hands up and say that I used to deep condition overnight for a really long time. When I first went natural about 7 years ago.
I'm speaking from a place of I've done all the stupid things to my hair, and one day I was just like, but why am I doing this?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with me as well. And when you're studying trichology as well, then you start to get there is a point where you start to think, oh, hold on, I'm confused now. You as the clinician are confused. You're like, but I've been doing this. Why have I been doing this? And then almost you regress a little bit because now you need to find a new, better way to tackle how you're handling and looking after your hair. Yeah. I've been guilty of everything. I know all the top YouTubers. I know all of the, when people come and sit down, I already know what's going on because I'm abreast of it. Because I think secretly I want to try it, but I also know it's nonsense.
Yeah. And then on that point as well, when I think about like my experience in the salon to compare to what I would do at home or like see other people doing, because I went natural at like the same time everybody else was going natural, so that was like a new experience for me, and it's not really taught in schools or anything. And I was like, I can go to the hairdressers or do my hair myself like at the salon, and it look amazing and be in and out in like an hour and a half. So if they didn't deep condition or like do all these other things that I'm doing to be extra, how come they can get this amazing result? And me at home, I'm spending Friday night till Sunday morning trying to recreate it and not being able to do so. So I was like, no, this can really be cut down.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously, I think hair wash days were quite a big thing several years ago. I remember, you'd say, oh no, this weekend is just it's a wash weekend. And, I'm going to be indoors for 5 hours, pre-pooing, then washing, then doing this, then doing that. And obviously, all of that takes quite a lot of time.
Yeah, man, we all had 2 inches of hair. We all had little TWAs. Taking 5 hours to wash, that's not good economics.
Yeah. Oh my God. And the final thing, something that I've seen on YouTube recently that sort of sparked quite a lot of debate as well, is putting hair grease in hair. So like the Blue Magics and the Do Grows to hair, not to the scalp, but to hair, to reduce single strand knots and for hair growth. What would you say to that?
Well, for hair growth, no. I mean, the question I always ask people is that for hair growth, what is the active ingredient that is promoting the hair growth? And is it penetrating deep into your dermis, beyond, right into the subcutaneous fat layer to get to your actual hair follicle to stimulate growth? So that's my first question. My second question is that for the single strand knots and the actual condition of the hair, in terms of hair grease, so hair grease is it's basically petroleum they're reverting back to. Now, petroleum is inert, so it's quite good for skin conditions on your body, etc. However, when you're on the hair, it's good, but what happens is that it's very occlusive. So what they're doing is that they're adding moisture and they're putting the hair grease on, and their hair is sliding by each other because it lubricates by each other, so there's no single strand knot. However, what's also happening is that if you put petroleum on your hair, you're not allowing any moisture in because it blocks the moisture, and you're going to need a stronger shampoo to remove it. And with these people not wanting to wash their hair and only co-washing, that's going to be a problem. I can say I can see some of the the benefits because they're using it for lubrication, which is what oils and butters are typically used for. But again, it's not a holy grail ingredient. You know, it's not something that's going to, you know, grow your hair and make your hair suddenly look amazing, which is what people are, you know, trying to say. And I'm sorry to say this, but I think part of it is gimmick as well. It's like everything's been said and done. Everything's been, what can I say next that's going to like revolutionize? What's going to give me views?
Yeah.
If I say this is controversial because we've all been anti-grease.
Yeah.
So if I say this is like going to be controversial, I'll get the views. And I do believe that because I saw those videos, and funnily enough, this time I didn't click. I was like, no, I'm not clicking this video to watch it because I don't know what you're going to say in the video, but I'm actually not interested today.
Definitely.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
Firstly, can we just respect Stephanie for being a top trichologist in London? Did you see the big signs that she was giving us, yeah?
Oh my God.
Nervous level, she was like, no, you're not going to play with me today. I know my facts. But when I was about like maybe 15, 16, I was, you see, hair shops, yeah, they shouldn't sell half the products that they have because they allow consumers who have no sense to buy things that are dangerous. So I was buying bleach, I was buying colours, relaxers. I ruined my hair. And I remember one of my friends telling me, you know, oh, buy Do Grow, it's really, really good. And I was like, okay, let me go get it. So I went and purchased a couple of them. I had like, you know, the greases, the shampoos, conditioners, everything. And I used it on my hair religiously and my hair grew. Now, let me caveat that by saying I actually implemented a routine. I never had one before. I wasn't doing anything like properly with my hair. It was just, you know, calm, slap colour, slap relaxer, leave it until, you know, there's regrowth. But when I started using those products, it forced me to kind of be like, I'm washing my hair regularly, I'm looking after it more, I'm moisturising it. And because I was aware of breakage and damage, I stopped doing things like using heat and straighteners and gel every day like I was. And then I think back to like maybe like our parents' generation or even before then, they were using horrible products. But a lot of people still have really good hair. And when you think about those people, they're not the ones that just allow any and everybody in their scalp. They take very good care of their hair despite what they were using. And so even if you aren't able to access, you know, the finest top ingredients with the best science and the best studies and trichologists recommended and you can still have a really good amount of healthy growing hair, even if you don't have the best things to use, as long as you apply the right technique.
That's great. And I think that's a great segue into talking about hair care regimes, because you just said that in as much as you were using things that you probably wouldn't recommend today, you actually had a good hair care regime, and that's what certain people are lacking. So what kind of regime would you recommend?
Is this me or Steph?
Both of you.
You can take that one.
Okay.
I'll answer after, but you go first, Ebony.
I think people are really focused on products, and so they'll be like, oh, this person's just brand new line, let me go and collect all of the products. And I'm like, no, think about what your hair needs. So at the moment, my hair is coloured, and it's it can get quite dry, and I've got some scalp conditions as well. So I focus on that. Mine is to get rid of the flakes and to make sure that my colour is preserved and my hair is still moisturised. That's what I'm looking for in products. I don't think, oh, this person's, you know, their new gel, let me go try it out just for the sake of it. You have to think about what your hair needs. If in 6 months' time my hair has a different need, I've changed out my products to fit what it needs. So I'm not bound to any shampoo, conditioner, styling product just because of who it's made by. I'm looking for, does this address what my hair needs at this time? And until it stops doing so, I'll continue to use it.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
When people are like, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I find it hard when people are like, oh, you know, drop the skincare regime, drop the hair care regime. I'm like, you don't know what that person needs. And so just following the same product, even if they have the same hair type or they're your hair twin, they can have really fine hair and you do too, but theirs likes more moisture and yours likes more protein, or, you know, vice versa. So it's difficult to just take any generic advice. You have to make it very, very specific to your own hair.
Yeah, I think another key is consistency. Ebony said it earlier. Being consistent in what you do, and you know, not being too mad with the hairstyles you do. So if you pick products, I'm not a product junkie. I actually get very overwhelmed by the thought of buying lots of products. So I have one set of products that I use for a while and I get to know them. And I think that's what people need to do. They need to allow themselves to get to know a product and also allow themselves the time to put in a routine and keep to the routine. Because when you keep to a routine, that's when you see, how, a product is affecting your hair or whether it likes it or not. Because you can't tell. In a one wash, you can use a product and say, oh, my hair doesn't like it. But how do you actually know that maybe the product you were using before has caused chronic dryness? You've removed that dryness now, and this product is now taking effect. You don't know until you've used it consistently for a period of time.
Yeah.
And people just chop and change between products and say, oh, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working, and they don't have a consistent routine. Yeah. Wash your hair every week. Deep condition it every week. Put it in a protective style. And when I say protective style, it can be a bun. Just keep it consistent. And when you do that, you keep it consistent and simple, you see the true measure of whether what you're doing is working.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people bounce around. I've been guilty of it, and sometimes I'm still bouncing around because of time, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important.
That's great. And coming to talking about hair growth, because you said something about, do we know if it's penetrating the dermis? Can you tell us a bit about how does hair grow?
So hair growth takes place in the dermal papilla. The simplest way to explain it is cells are dividing and the hair is growing through that. There's a blood source which sends it to the follicle, and that hair is growing through the layers of the skin out of the scalp. The things that usually affect hair growth are, Ebony said this earlier, health, diet, your hair care regimen. All of these things can have an effect. And what most people think is that if I apply something topically, that's going to solve the problem, when we need to look internally and we need to see what's going on. Because hair is I call it like a secondary sexual feature. Okay. Because what it is really for mate selection. A glorious crown. It's like a peacock. Peacock crowns his tail, and he's like, and the women are like, woo, look at his tail. I think hair's like that as well. It's like, look at her mane, look at her hair, and then you're just bopping, and everyone's like, oh my god, look at her hair. But it's not essential for survival. Okay. So the body, when under attack, is usually going to get rid of that first. It's like, what is this thing that you are carrying on your head that you spend all this time on? Your kidney needs this. We're going to your kidneys. So this is where there's a real disconnect between what people believe is good for their hair by topically adding and not really focusing on what's going on inside. Because everything from hair growth happens from inside. The hair growth starts deep, deep, deep down under your layers. You've got the epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous fat layers happening deep down in that. So if you're not taking care of yourself inside, how are you getting all those products to go right down there? It's especially just topically.
So that's really important, actually. And so obviously that would then suggest that certain inadequate diets can also cause problems with hair loss as well. What kind of sort of deficiencies or vitamin problems, would you say that you've seen quite recurrently, especially in the Black community, that also contributes to hair loss?
Vitamin D and iron, top two. Ebony?
Yeah, same, top two, definitely. But all of them can have an effect, because it's like, as Stephanie said, if your body's not in a great place, it's going to pull nutrients from somewhere. Yeah. And so, like, the littlest thing can cause hair loss. Like, there's, like, if you have a fever, some people, like, if your hormones fluctuate too much when you're on your period, stress can affect it. Like, when I tell you that your body doesn't really like your hair, like, people think it's a joke, it's ready to get rid of it at a drop of a hat. It's like, oh, you was being rude today, yeah? Cool, hair loss for you. And sometimes these things will resolve themselves really quickly. Yeah. And, it will be all right. And so at that time, people will be like, oh, my hair's shedding. Yeah. And then use all these things. And be like, yeah, this grew back my hair. It's just like, no, your hair was going to come back anyway. It was just really nice for your scalp. You know, it was great. Self-care for your scalp. So, yeah.
So I was going to talk about seborrheic dermatitis and dry scalp conditions. Why do you think it's so prevalent in the Black community? Because it does seem to be more prevalent in the Black community compared to sort of the Caucasian hair community.
This is an interesting one. I actually think there are a number of factors, and I've been doing a lot of work on seborrheic dermatitis lately.
Okay.
And one of the things I've got a few theories. Some, I've read in journals, and some I've applied what I've read in journals, my experience of who I've seen in clinic, and having suffered the condition myself as well, what happens.
Yeah.
So I think the two drivers of seborrheic dermatitis are malassezia and fungus on scalp, and also the presence of sebum. They coexist quite well together. Malassezia loves sebum. Now, I think what's happening with the Black community is, one, this dry climate is not allowing our sebum to move freely through our scalp and our hair. So usually with Caucasian hair, you can brush the sebum through. You'll see it. That's when people will say, my hair is really greasy. And you're like, oh, yes, it is very greasy. Because it's for the sebum to travel through the actual hair stuff. I think with Afro hair, it's because it's coily, it's sticking quite close to the scalp.
Okay. Which
means it's giving more, basically food to the malassezia to grow. So it's very hard to move it around. The sebum is staying very close to the scalp.
Yeah.
And this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. I'm thinking, why? Because a lot of my patients we see have seborrheic dermatitis. And I came to start to think, I think it's that. It's also grooming practices. So whilst a lot of we have good, a lot of us do have very good grooming practices. A lot of us are also not washing our hair frequently enough. And I know it's difficult, and this is not a judgment, but the more that we, try and get the hair washed, like sticking to at least a minimum of once a week, we can get rid of that sebum buildup quite easily on the scalp. So I think those are the two main things that are, causing issue. Ebony, do you have anything that you're thinking?
A lot of people that I see, even if their scalp is really, really bad, they find that once they remove certain greasier products from their regime and increase washing frequency, they're able to kind of really manage it and keep it under wraps.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I agree, Ebony, because I also read a report about stress and how stress increases the production of sebum, making you oilier. So, it's I think these are all factors.
Definitely. And what about, so obviously with flaky scalp, there's a lot of myths and there's a lot of strange practices that we engage in terms of trying to then settle things down without actually understanding what exactly is causing the dandruff, what exactly is causing the seborrheic dermatitis. And what would you say to sort of application of things like tea tree oil to the scalp?
Tea tree oil neat can cause burns. And when I worked in a skin and hair clinic, we did see a guy who had quite bad burns from using tea tree oil. I won't say exactly how, but he just quite bad burns from it. So I always tell people to err on the side of caution, because essential oils shouldn't be applied neatly to the scalp.
Yeah.
That said, tea tree oil does have antimicrobial, antibacterial elements to it. Yeah. So it can be added to other products. Okay. And you will find it in quite good seborrheic dermatitis shampoos, working hand in hand with key ingredients like zinc prithione, and I haven't seen it with what's it called? How can I forget this one? Ketoconazole. I've never seen it with ketoconazole, but I've seen it with the other one that you mentioned, Ebony.
Yeah.
So it can work, but what I'm always cautious about saying, it can work to help control it. Yeah. Because people are then going to go and use it neat. And neat isn't safe. Any essential oil neat is not safe.
Okay.
So that's something I'm cautious about.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think this is where it's really important to have like women. I'm not gonna say women of colour. I say black women because I don't subscribe to the women of colour thing. Black women, because of like our hair care practices. So when you see like, you know, even a doctor or another psychologist, they'll tell you if you have symptoms, you need to wash your hair frequently, every day if possible. That is ridiculous for a lot of women. Like it's laughable.
Yeah.
And so when they get these shampoos, they don't understand that, you know, they're quite drying and they don't know how to use them well. So they'll get their like an anti-dandruff and anti-sebum shampoo, whichever one they choose, and they'll apply it to like their scalp and their hair as well, and then be upset because their hair is dry, it's stripped of all its moisture. But they don't understand that those shampoos should just be focused on the scalp, and you can then go and use your normal moisture shampoo afterwards to replenish any lost moisture in your hair. And it's like you have to kind of adapt things to make it suit you better. So then that's when I think people move to go and using like tea tree oil or those other things, because they're like, oh no, I tried this shampoo and it just made my hair feel horrible.
Yeah.
So because we're not, some people aren't able to wash their hair frequently as they should, they're trying to use things that will dampen down the symptoms. So if they have like a dry, flaky scalp, they're like, okay, well, let me put some like oil or moisturizer or something on it to reduce those flakes because I can't wash it just yet. But I'm thinking if anywhere else in your skin was flaking, you would go and wet it to remove that buildup or anything else. I'm like, why don't we apply the same logic to our scalp? Because it is essentially just skin.
Yeah. And what about scalp moisturizers? So not the ones that are heavy in petrolatum, the ones that are maybe water-based, because there are quite a few water-based ones now. Would you recommend the use of water-based?
You can go first, Ebony.
I want to see if you say something. Okay, so my general consensus is you don't need anything on your scalp, but obviously there's exceptions to every rule. And so if you find that you do have a very dry scalp, I'd say if there's patches or areas on the scalp that are extremely dry, then you can go ahead and put, you know, a water-based product on those particular areas. We don't need to go through, you know, covering every single section of the scalp as we would do with like our skin or how we used to when we used to grease it. And it's kind of like a way to wean yourself off. Some people in some areas have to use, you know, more products on their scalp than others, but I find that most people are able to wean themselves off having to use anything on their scalp regularly.
Okay. Stephanie?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, I agree. I typically, if someone has a really dry scalp, I have recommendations in clinic of water-based products or water-based things that they can do to keep their scalp like moisturized, hydrated, should I say.
Okay.
And I do think that they can work. They have a place. Some people do have an exceptionally dry scalp. And I think that primarily happens in that period where they're going from a time where they're doing all the work for their scalp and then they stop and their scalp needs to now re-regulate itself. So there is a period of dryness, I think, in that point, and sometimes people need a little bit of help. So
yeah, okay. And what about, so obviously there's quite a few people who then find that actually it's not seborrheic dermatitis that they have. They might have a fungal scalp condition or psoriasis. In what sort of percentage of black women would you say that you've seen that have gone through that journey and actually it wasn't sebderm, it was something else?
I've not seen that many. Normally, when I see that person, they have seborrheic dermatitis. What is actually interesting is they don't actually know they have seborrheic dermatitis.
Okay.
They don't know they have it.
Okay.
They will say that my scalp is really flaky, it's itchy, it's this, it's that. And then they'll show me the products they're using.
Yeah.
And straight away I'll say, okay, I know what's going on. I've not come across any person where they had psoriasis instead of sebderm yet.
Okay.
Yeah, same, neither have I. But what I do come across is people using those conditions interchangeably.
Okay.
Yeah. So when people be like, oh, I have psoriasis, and they'll tell me the symptoms, I'm like, that's not psoriasis, that's sebderm. And then they'll be like, oh, I've been using like the wrong products. It's a lot of self-diagnosis, or like their friends may have a similar condition and not know the correct term for it. And so I think it's really important to see, especially whether it's a trichologist or a doctor or dermatologist, someone who can give you the correct info, because even the stuff online, like I see about certain conditions, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
And just before we round up, any advice for those of us that have, because in the black hair community, we've all, put on wigs too tight, we've all had braids on too tight, traction alopecia, what would you say would be the first step in terms of going forward, other than stopping the pain, stopping taking paracetamol before you go to your braider? Because it's something that we all used to do. You take a paracetamol before you go for your braids, and then take some more when you get back home, and then in a couple of days you'll be fine, and then you've got banging braids, but you have no more hair. So
just stop it. I think it's really important to have a good relationship with your hairstylist.
Yeah.
And so when clients come to see me, I try to empower them to be like, if there's something you're unhappy with, please tell me. I'm not going to shout at you. I'm not going to embarrass you or make you feel a certain way. It's okay for you to tell me, that's too tight, or can we do it this way? I've always got enough time for you.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, this is the first time I've ever been able to say, oh, actually that braid is a little bit too tight. Even though I think I'm soft-handed, it does happen where they're like, oh no, there's a hair catching. If you have to sit there and squirm and wince and be like, okay, I just have to take it, you need to find somebody else.
Yeah.
Especially if you can't say to the person, look, I'm not happy with that. And think about it, your hair can only go through trauma a limited amount of times before it gives up on you. So if you think every time they pull too tight, your hair follicles count in the tally, being like, you've got 2-3 more times to play with me, and I'm not coming back.
Wow.
That should kind of change how you think about, is this damage really worth it for banging Instagram photos?
Yeah. When it comes to tight braiding, wig glue and all of that, it really is about using it using it in moderation can be a problem. And it's really thinking about, I don't do tight, I've not done tight braids for a long time. And if my braids are tight, I haven't braided my hair in a while, but if someone braids my hair tightly, I will tell them and I will remove that braid. I'm that annoying friend that goes, that braid's too tight.
Yeah.
And they're like, my friend's like, oh, but if I take it out, there'll be a tuft of hair. And my response is, okay, so you can either have that tuft of hair now, or when you take out that braid later, you don't have it.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, fine, I'll take it out. Because it's just, we shouldn't be in pain. I keep on saying this. Why are we in pain?
Yeah.
Other women of other races aren't in pain with their hair. Why are we in pain?
And the neatness of it as well. And I think that ties back into the washing cycle and everything, because it's like, if I go get my braids done, I want it to last me 4 weeks, and I'm not washing my hair in that time, so it needs to be tight so it can look good for those whole 4 weeks or however long.
That's what people are saying, yeah.
No, I'll rather have my braids look messy after 2 weeks and my hair still be thriving than be like, okay, great braids until the day I'm ready to take them out, but it's taking all my hair out with it.
Yeah, because the braids aren't my hair. The braids aren't my actual hair, so they can look, okay, so they look banging, but my hair underneath is dying and screaming and yelling at me. But I'm like, yeah, cool. When I take it off, I'm going to put some new braids on. No, I think it's a really, I think tight braids, for a start, if your braids are too tight, then you need to take them out and have them redo them. And I think some women don't recognize anymore when their braids are too tight.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're used to it. We got used to it. So if it's not tight, you think she hasn't done it properly. I went to do my braids and she didn't do it well. And your friend's looking, thinking, those braids look nice. No. You see, look, they're loose. And then they shake it. And you're like, no, it's not loose.
Yeah.
Oh, and can I just add the amount of hair?
Yeah.
Please. When I hear I use 10 bags of hair, I just fall on the floor. I'm like, 10 bags? How are you carrying 10 bags? When you came from the supermarket and you were carrying, the hair shop, and you were carrying 10 bags, how did it feel?
Oh gosh, that's
heavy,
true. Right? Oh, I've never thought about it that way,
Then you put it on your head, and it makes a difference. No, it's still heavy.
Listen, even just the practices before you go into getting your braids done, the blow drying, the straightening, the application of hair grease. I had one woman tell me she wanted to relax my hair before she braided it, and I was like, come on, this chair real quick. And I know people that have been pressured into doing things that they're not comfortable with. But again, try and develop a relationship with the person that's doing your hair. There are great stylists who can execute a style and make it look amazing, but some of them can also be very detrimental to your hair. And it's just thinking about which one you prefer. Like, if you don't care about the length of your hair, the health of your hair, then by all means, enjoy those things. Like, for me, length has never been a goal, so I will bleach my hair to thy kingdom come because I enjoy having wild colours. I don't care about my hair reaching any bra strap, that kind of length. I can play around and have a bit more fun, but if you feel like health is my goal, then you have to sacrifice certain practices.
Well, I never thought about, just carrying the 10 bags of hair.
I've had braids that when I turn my head, so if I'm in bed and I turn my head, the braids, when the braids finally drop into their position, it pulls my head down. That was the day I thought, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
This is wrong. My hair should not be pulling on my head like that. When I have my natural hair out, it doesn't feel like this, but I put 10 bags of hair
on my head.
And I see some vendors who then say to you, oh, it should take about 10 to 12 bags to do this hairstyle. I'm like, for the wear? How? I've done the same hairstyle and I've used 4. Is it that you want to sell me more?
Yeah.
Or is it that the hair needs to be that big?
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah.
You're so traumatized.
I actually am, because so many of us go around with traction alopecia and we're wondering, oh, but why am I losing my hair and it's not tight? But then actually it might not be tight, but actually the volume and it is actually causing traction, and the amount of hair that you have on is actually causing traction. And even some of these things that we do with wigs as well, and the non-glue, blast-free sprays as well, they do actually cause hair loss in some of us as well. And so it's just actually reviewing what we're doing for the sake of beauty. When I was little, I remember they say, oh no, beauty is pain, darling, beauty is pain.
Yeah, no, I've never, I rebuke it, no way.
And now from everything you said, I'm like, actually, I should actually really think about all of these things, and we should really talk about it a lot more as well in, safe, open spaces where we can actually challenge the things that we've always believed to be true that actually aren't true.
I think what I really like the most about working with Stephanie is that when we put on our events together, we kind of hold up a mirror to people and be like, I want you to just say out loud and slowly what you do to your hair, and then think about each thing and be like, does this make sense? Like, people come in and be like, oh, I've got this problem. I'm like, okay, but what do you do? And in front of me, I've got a list of things that are damaging, and they're like, yeah, so, do I need to do shampoo? And I'm like, no, you need to stop doing this, that, and the other.
Yeah, definitely.
Having black women in trichology and in hair care who are really trying to read journals and find out, what's really the science behind things is so important. And so I encourage people to YouTubers have their place and things like that, but also take everything with a picture. So even things that we say, because we're still learning as well. So if you hear something and be like, oh, I'm not too sure, please message me and be like, oh yeah, why did you say that? And I'll try and find, a reasonable explanation.
Yeah.
One of the key things I also want to, or a couple of key things I want to highlight is that, number one, everything that I say in terms of weight of hair, traction alopecia, is all said in love. This is not a judgment because I've been there, I've done it. It's no judgment.
Yeah,
it's just,
definitely.
I really want women to hear the message, and men, because there are men, doing having hair loss issues as well. So I really want them just to hear it. It's not judgment. That's one thing I'd like to caveat. And certainly at our events, there is no judgment. And a lot of people have commented that that's what they like the most, that it's not judgy. It's joking, we laugh about it. Jokes. Yeah, jokes, And the other thing I want to really highlight is seek the appropriate help.
Yes.
Because people seek the wrong kind of help. And I know sometimes it's difficult because there are lots of people that say they're an expert in something and they're not actually. And you can't help that sometimes. But you'll see women going to someone. I've spoken to people telling me that, oh, I was going to come and see you, but I found this round-the-back way woman who told me she can do it for £25, so I went there. Yeah. What is the qualification of this round-the-way-back woman?
Yeah.
Or man? It's not, again, I'm not judging that person's decision. It might be, budget, But what I'm saying is that person may not be best equipped to advise you on the issue and could cause further damage. So when you're looking for that person, make sure that they're experienced and they're an expert, not just in how to take care of the hair, because there are experts in that, but also what's going on inside.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, there are people that can say, oh, this is what you need to do to grow healthy hair. But if I was never going to grow a healthy strand, all my strands are breaking off because I'm iron deficient. How am I going to get my hair to bra strap length, even if I rub the lotions and potions and do the regime that you told me to do? You need to find the underlying cause. Yeah,
definitely. That's so important. You guys, tell us a bit more about Kinky Collective. I don't think we talked about that at the beginning.
So the Kinky Collective, really we just wanted to, as we just said now, make a space for black women to come and learn what we feel is like the best way to look after their hair in like a safe environment where there's no judgment. It's all fun and games. We get to really explore and challenge them in a way they're kind of like, oh, this, you know, could have been painful, but it was actually like, you know, a nice experience. So our next event is on the 8th of March. We're doing a braiding class because a lot of black women can't braid their hair, and like that kind of feeds into the cycle of going to stylists who don't necessarily have their, I don't say their best interests at heart, but maybe don't know the best way themselves to care for their hair. And so if you can take back the ownership of your own hair, you know, then you can have more say over how you let it be treated, because you don't have to do it yourself. So we're hosting a braiding class. It's a really small, intimate get together. We only have like a few people coming at a time, so we can really teach you, you know, from like complete novices to braiding with extensions.
That's great.
Yeah. And we, you know, lunch is provided. I just like to add that.
And drinks and music.
Just music and banter. We got banter. We've got all of that.
And goodie bags. Yeah, we have a really good time.
That's great.
But it is a safe space for women to talk. And one of the key things that came out of our last braiding class is a lot of women saying that, excuse me, we didn't know who to tell that we couldn't braid. It's like an embarrassment to be a black woman that doesn't know how to braid. And so coming here has been really good because there's no judgment. You know, we're all laughing, we're all learning together. So that was really important. And the take-home message for that is that to make sure that we keep on offering this, because women want to know how to braid, and men are welcome too.
We want that. Like, it's open for everyone, but like I feel like our heart is especially for black women, because we really want them. Like I speak for myself, and I'm sure Stephanie like agrees, but it's like I see so much misinformation, and I see black women being taken for a ride, and it's just like I don't like them being exploited. So I'm like, what can I do to make sure that at least with their hair, they are like, you know, able to make really good informed choices.
Definitely. And just before we leave, we normally ask you to give us a championship point, so something that the listeners can hold on to for the rest of the week before the next episode, and something that they can also share with people that is bite-sized. So whichever one of you wants to go first with a championship point.
Ebony. My point is, your hair is going to grow regardless of what you do. It's growing. It's growing. So, like, you know, just know that it's growing. Because a lot of people are like, oh, my hair's not growing. I'm like, babes, if you ever had a relaxer, every 6 weeks you had to go get a retouch. Because why? Hair was growing.
Mine would be keep it simple. Don't get bogged down with everything. Don't get bogged down watching YouTube videos, 10 billion YouTube videos, and saying, oh my God, I need to pre-poo, after poo, co-wash, shampoo, deep condition, protein, and then I need to sit under a dryer for 3 days. No, keep it simple. You just need to do the, you know, wash, condition, moisturized, style. Go. That's it.
That is.
Oh, another one. Come to our braiding class.
Yes, come to the braiding class.
Do you want me about some promotion? Whack.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Everyone, come to the braiding class. I'll link the deets beneath on the on the podcast note.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Do share this podcast with 2 people who have not heard about us before. Remember that this podcast in no way replaces advice from your own doctor or physician. Do subscribe and follow us on social media. Leave us a review on iTunes so that others can access the amazing content. And do join the club at asliceofhealth.club and drop us some suggestions or questions that you might have. Don't forget to be a health champion wherever you go by separating health fact from health fiction.